When Marvel came out with Black Panther, for a lot of folks, it just didn't feel like a superhero movie. It gave a lot of people, myself included, especially myself, a sense of a hero that I could look up to, I could identify with, and really made me excited to see that hero on the big screen. Chadwick Chadwick Boseman Chadwick Boseman delivered a performance that, for the first time, me looking at superheroes, made me really admire the hero and make me truly appreciate everything that that hero brought to the screen. And so, with the passing of ah, Chadwick Boseman, Marvel had a really big task. How do they find a way to keep the Black Panther franchise alive? How do they keep the Black Panther is, in my opinion, one of the greatest Marvel movies, one of the greatest superhero movies in the history of cinema, period. We're not talking. Black Panther, without a doubt, is one of the greatest superhero movies, one of the greatest Marvel movies in the history of cinema. With the passing of Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, Marvel had a very challenging task. How do they honor the career, the achievement of Black Panther, of Chadwick Boseman, while also continuing a franchise? So they had a big task in front of them when they created Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And this will be the Nerd World Order spoiler free review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, as a nerd, there are four things that we look for in order to determine if the movie is going to be good or not. We have the acting, action, special effects, and stories. We put them all together, possible four nerd flags. So let's start off by getting into the acting of this Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The acting was good. It was great. I mean, you got Angela Bassett. She's going to deliver. You have cousin Winston Duke, who's also going to deliver, and Letitia Wright, who's going to do a great job because we saw her in the previous Black Panther do a great job. So there was no question the acting was going to be good. But then we have to ask ourselves, what about Tunok Huerta as Namor? How is he going to do? Is he going to be able to deliver that regal nature that Namor normally carries? He did a great job as well. Now, looking at the Letitia Wright, Shuri character, the Angela Bassett character, the M'Baku character, and of course the Okoye character, are they going to be able to give us the acting that shows that they are in mourning, that they're grieving over the loss of T'Challa, but they want to be able to move forward. They want to be able to rebuild Wakanda, make Wakanda forever. Did they do that? Absolutely. And there was no question for any of us going into this movie that these actors and actresses were going to deliver. And for some of them, this performance wasn't just about acting, it was about honoring the legacy of Chadwick Boseman. And they did a great job of that. Filling the shoes of Chadwick Boseman, carrying on the legacy of Chadwick Boseman, that is somewhat of an insurmountable task. And the fact that Letitia Wright, that Angela Bassett, that Winston Duke, that Danny Gara was able to do that so effectively, hats off. One very strong nerd flag for the acting in Wakanda Forever. Now let's move on to the action. I'm a nerd. I love action. I love fight scenes. I love car chases. I love seeing stuff that I haven't seen before. I love flips. I love agility. And I didn't get what I wanted out of Wakanda Forever. Ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the Nerd Order, I wasn't impressed. I really wasn't. The fighting was, it was so-so, but I've seen it all before. Namor was cool. Namor was pretty awesome. I thought the way that he fought, his style of fighting was pretty cool. The Black Panther, it's like, wow. if you look at the first Black Panther compared to this Black Panther, the action just was not on the same level. And that really bothered me. I felt like there were car chases, but they just weren't that great. I felt like the car chasing, the pacing never really got going in the car chases. The fight scenes, because we had to show how strong one group of fighters was compared to the established Wakandan Dora Milaje, the fight scenes just ended way too quickly. They ended in sort of like not even a stalemate, just a loss. And it felt like the fights just didn't have the excitement that I expected out of a good Marvel movie. Let's compare it to, let's say, any of the fights in any Captain America movie. Not there. Let's compare it to the fights in the previous Black Panther movie. Not quite the same. Car chases, quite not the same. The action just didn't deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, and knights of Nerd World Order, I cannot give Black Panther Wakanda Forever a nerd flag for the action. So if you're counting, that is one nerd flag for the acting in Wakanda Forever. But this is a superhero movie. Because it is a superhero movie, we can ask ourselves, how are the special effects? I don't know. I don't know what happened here. As you're watching the movie, or as I watched the movie anyway, there were some scenes that just looked a little bit too CGI. I feel like there were some things. There were some underwater scenes because, as you know, Namor does come from an underwater kingdom. The underwater scenes were cool. It was very hit or miss. Sometimes the special effects were a little bit distracting because they didn't deliver. Other times the special effects were really good because it was like, wow, this is really cool. The characters are interacting. I like them. I'm going to have to give it one reluctant nerd flag. The reason being is because the underwater stuff was simply amazing. I felt like the character of Ironheart looked amazing. I didn't care for the way that they used the special effects with the Black Panther. And I felt like some of the CGI backgrounds were a little bit too fake. Like I don't know, it's like someone got laid off from DC and they used their person who got laid off. Marvel, don't use anybody from DC that got laid off. There's a reason why. Don't use their special effects team. Use your own. That's one nerd flag for the special effects in Wakanda Forever. Reluctant, but those water scenes pulled it out. But, you know, one nerd flag floats to the surface for Wakanda Forever. Well, let's get into that story. Story, as a nerd, guess what, ladies, gentlemen, and knights? I'm a comic book nerd. I kind of knew what was going to happen. How we get there is probably the most important thing. The story was slow. It was just trotting. I didn't care. It was telegraphed. There were parts of it that were like, well, that's kind of lazy writing. There were parts of it that were just lazy writing. Even though it made sense in the context of the overall character, and it made sense in the context of we have to get this done, but it was just lazy writing. And that's very disappointing, Marvel, because I felt like a lot of the movie moved along through lazy writing, and conflicts and problems were resolved through lazy writing, and there were a lot of things that they just pulled out, and I really couldn't get into it. The progression of the movie was just very start and stop, and wow, I expected more. I felt like in a lot of ways it was the story that should happen, but not in an exciting manner. So if you're counting, if you're noticing what I'm putting down and you're picking it up, that's no nerd flags for the story in Wakanda Forever. Even the Moore story was interesting, but I mean, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. He was an interesting character, but his motivations just seemed so singular that you really couldn't get into his motivations. I didn't care about the character that they were focusing on. I didn't care for other characters' reactions to certain things that happened. I felt like they were just out of character. For me, there was only one character, likable character in the movie, possibly two. M'Baku. I loved M'Baku, but then they just treated Okoye like trash. I didn't care for that either. A lot of stuff they kind of telegraphed this would happen in the next movie. You know, man, there's so much about this movie that I just could not get into. I felt like a lot of characters were just brought in to the movie in order to set things up for other Marvel movies, which was just completely unnecessary. Everett Ross didn't need to be in the movie. The only reason he was in the movie was to set up things for other Marvel movies, even though he was a character from the previous movie. They really didn't need him. This whole movie is just to set up other Marvel movies. It did show respect to the passing of Chadwick Boseman, but then they did other things where they kind of diminished what they had done to show respect to the passing of Chadwick Boseman. And, I took offense to that. I really did. I was like, let's just diminish the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I felt like they did that. And I took offense to that. Since we're talking about story, sometimes I give an additional nerd flag for the after credits. Get up out your seat and walk, okay? There's no reason to see those after credits. It's just fan service. It's lazy writing. It doesn't set up anything. I'm going to tell you right now, spoiler alert, it doesn't set up anything for future Marvel movies. It's just sitting there. It's like, oh, my heartstrings pull at them. Yeah, you can pull at your heartstrings, but at the end of the day, when I sit down, when I basically hold it so I can watch some after credits, some end credits, some mid credits. You know what I want? I want something to make me go, oh, dang, I wonder what's going to happen next in the MCU. This didn't do that. They just tried to pull at my heartstrings. And you know what? They didn't. They did not tug at my heartstrings. They just made me go, well, gosh, I still need to use the bathroom because this movie made me sit there and watch it for 3 hours. Slow, boring movie with mediocre fight scenes, mediocre chase scenes, doing all the characters that I love dirty. So if you're counting, that's 2 nerd flags. Ladies, gentlemen, knights of the Nerd World Order, let me say this. Rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. Thank you, Ryan Coogler, for giving us an additional Black Panther so that we can close this chapter, Black Panther, and perhaps have a Black Panther 3 that is worth watching. So until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the Nerd World Order, I know my opinion is of the minority when it comes to this movie that so many people love, but I could not enjoy Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. This movie felt like it went on forever and gave us very little to be excited for. Until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the Nerd World Order, I am iamnwo. We are NWO, and we are